Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock practicing necromancer. Today, I want to kind of do a reading for you from my latest essay that was published by Mr. Edgar Cavall. Um, I'm also going to show you the books that my essays were in, that he put out for me, not just by me, but by other practitioners who also contributed to these books. And I got to give a shout out to them as well because of the fact that these are some of the best personal experiences I've come across in a long time from various different traditions. More so, it is something that I think is necessary to help modern practitioners in society. How should I say this? Come to realize that what they've been spoon fed all these years is nothing more than a bunch of hooey dooey, basically meaning horseshit, lies, deceit by the JCI. And I'm going to be showing you a historical perspective from my personal research. And this particular essay that I'm going to be reading is about the priesthoods. Okay. Um, I've come across in the last decade several who claim that women cannot be a priest or priestess and that they are of the devil if they do. Well, guess what? I've actually proven them wrong through my own research and I've given references and all that stuff. But here it is. A lot of you know me as a practitioner of the African Caribbean traditions, but also that in my past, I was a practicing Satanist for a long, long time. You know me as a black magician, a sorcerer. Okay. But you also know that when it comes to research, I am very dedicated to seeking out and rooting out the truth from the lies because I strongly believe in the European aspects of witches and warlocks terminology, where we are the keepers of the sacred knowledge. Okay. This is a historical fact when it comes to the terminology and etymology of what a witch and warlock is and why they were so respected in the old cultures in the old world by everybody from the tribal chiefs of Africa to European based occult followers who went for healing, for spiritual guidance, for cleansings, and you name it. It's there, even medicine. There's a reason why witches and warlocks are hated. And through my essays, I work diligently to put this forth and to show you the lies of modern society. As I said in my last video, modern society says that you cannot be an embalmer, you cannot be a morgue tech, unless you have some kind of training and a medical degree because of how things are separated from psychiatry to deal with the mind to trauma, such as the ER personnel, to upper management, who runs the finances and stuff like that, to down to basically the legal system. Okay. And when you get into practices such as anthropology, thanatology, you go into history, um, folklore, traditions worldwide, you're going to see this truth. And it takes a lot of courage and dedication, not just commitment, to delve into these practices and to delve into the knowledge itself and weed out the truth from the lies. So the first book right here, this is Sabbatica, Volume 5. Okay. This is where I put my first essay. I had was approached by Edgar Cavall, And we were talking about essays, and I told him, I'll put my stuff in through an educational perspective because that's what I do. And he's always honored and respected that about me, and I respect and honor what he does. Because that's part of being a practitioner is learning from one another. And this is why I get a lot of high respect for Edgar Cavall and all these other practitioners such as Addison F. Mason and Bill Duvendak, her husband. Um, this book here was put out in 2019, I think. Yes, 2019. And my first essay was called The Feared Art of Necromancy. And it basically described what necromancy was seen as and how far back it went. I believe, if I remember correctly, I actually proven that necromancy and shamanism were the two oldest traditions, just in that alone. And this essay is on page 149 in volume 5, okay, of Sabbatica, okay? My second essay is in another book, and it was from 2020. And let's see here. It's actually I was actually the last one, and that one is on page 137. But this particular book came out in 2020, and the Witch Blood Kala of the Klapoth. And it looks like this. This one here, I actually wrote my essay about the gods, basically, and I thought it was kind of cool because when you find out what necromancy is, the next logical thing to do is to go into things like what are the gods of death? Where do you go to study these gods of death and all that stuff? And I thought it was kind of cool to go from what it is into this. And then you have the third essay, which is in this one here, the Grave Songs and Herbal Gnosis, put forth by Edgar Cavall as well. And this was my third. My third essay is actually in this, and this one here, I actually broke it down into the different factions. The different belief structures, such as the Shem priesthood, the Hashishin, and old cults like the cult of Artemis, the cult of Hecate, the cult of Anubis, and such like that as well. And I thought it was pretty cool. And I even put in some of the actual practices into it because that I found in historical and mythological perspectives through mythology. And I really liked it because that particular one really broke down what necromancy is and how it was perceived through things like actual practices. I'm talking divination, I'm talking herbalism, okay? Things that throughout history you see how herbalism and alchemy plays a huge factor, from the poisonings of royalty to political agendas, assassinations, and also how herbalism is broken down into its most basic components to show you how it can be created for things like powders, okay, things for healing, things for to make people sick, to even eliminate people, okay. And when we get into European cultures, this is where we actually see where in the 16th 17th century alchemy really played a part in many of the assassinations that took place throughout Europe. It wasn't just daggers in the heart or duelings, as Hollywood produced films would lead you to believe. So by the time I got to my fourth and fifth essays, and I've talked about this in the past, um, I really wanted them to be separate. But the more I got into the priesthood, the different perspectives of the priesthood and the laws and all that stuff, I came to realize that the fourth and fifth essays were actually one and the same. And it's kind of cool to see how that played out. And that's the one I'm actually going to read to you today. And this one is actually my latest book, the latest book that was sent to me by Mr. Cavall, and it's called Sabbatica: The Mysterious Chance of the Death and the Dead, Volume V3. So again, and you've got several great authors in these books as well. I'm talking Bill Duvendak, Asenath Mason, even Edgar Cavall himself put one in. You've got what was it? S. Connolly Reeser also added to this. You also got where is it? Saoirse Ramirez was one of the authors in one of these books. You've got Raven Stronghold, Ricardo Meyer, Justin Combs, even Sith Necromancy, and I've spoken on the Sith in past videos, put in by Sean Fricks. I look, that was one of the ones that I actually looked forward to reading, and I actually enjoyed it very much. It was a very good essay put forth by him. Let me go back into the Witchblood here. Let's see, Leonard Dubois. Apologize if I butchered your last name there. Oscar Meerberg. You got Scene Woodward. Love your work, brother. Love your work. Page 68 on that one. The Cosmic Thoughts of Abby Boulan. That was one hell of a read on that one alone. I have to say that. Sorceric Whispers put forth by Saoirse Ramirez. Magnificent essay on that one. I really enjoyed that. So you got 1, 2, 3 books that have my essays in them, along with all these other practitioners that I've mentioned and more. But I'm going to be reading to you out of this one here. Now, this one here, when I opened this up and took it out of the package in the box, I was stunned. I mean, I love the gold tips on this, the way it came out. I love the design of it. It spoke truth of what a practitioner is. And Leo Blanford, welcome to the channel, my friend. If that's what you want to do, yes, you can. Think of it's not a race. You don't want to think of it as a race, Leo. You want to think it more of a marathon. Learn as much as you can, work as much as you can, and make those connections, forge those relationships, and everything comes in time through dedication, commitment, and hard work. It's taken me 6 years just to get seven essays. 6 years of dedicated, hard research and dedicated, committed, um, worldwide studies just on necromancy alone since I stepped foot on that path and as a necromancer. And I'm still going. And so, I mean, it is not a matter of how fast you get there. I mean, remember the race between the hare and the tortoise. Who was it that won that race? It was not the hare, even though the hare could outrun the tortoise 100 times over. It was actually the ego that took over and the pride that took over the hare, which caused him to lose because he ended up falling asleep and taking a nap. And the tortoise, being slow, took his time. He just simply took his time and enjoyed the journey. It was about learning. It was about going. And he even passed the hair and crossed that finish line. He was actually on that finish line when the hare woke up and realized, oh my God, he's past me. What the fuck? So keep in mind, it's not how fast you get there. It's about a marathon. It's about learning as much as you can in this lifetime. Okay. So why don't we get to this? Okay. The Ancient Priesthoods by me. Okay. And by the way, I love the photo that's on the opposite page. Necromancy in the truest sense, right there. It kind of reminds me of the Mayan and Aztec depictions of necromantic rites and rituals. Really love that. So here it is. Over the last few weeks, I've been delving into historically mythological and folkloric uh, areas of the priesthood. I've come to realize that what many believe to be truth is actually lies buried by the countless religious wars to establish dominance. Today, the Judo Christian Institutions, otherwise known as the JCI, rules the governments down to hospitals, funeral homes, and parishes. But within the last few decades, we have seen other religious paths take root within priests and priestesses of various faiths, such as Satanism to Wicca and paganism. Okay. Even with the current established laws from the Constitution granting equal rights here in America, the left hand paths, LHP, and other white light traditions are still limited and have to bow to JCI rules to even perform pastoral laws. Okay. And in the pastoral rights in the named areas. Here, right now, I am going to show you what you believe to be truth is all lies. So here it is. I will lay it out for you from beginning to end within the old world from various dynasties and era to which I have discovered through countless hours in cross referencing texts and religions of the world. What is witchcraft and how is it viewed? Witchcraft, from the JCI perspective, is to understand the indigenous people's way of life when entering into their domains of our alchemy, divination, necromancy, black magic, and possession. When it comes to JCI traditions, it is believed that only the demons, which is Greek etymology of the view, takes a host to corrupt and drag them to hell. These stages are conjuring, infection, inhabitation, commandeering, and consumption. This is the daemon is able now is the daemon is able to enter the human host and take over according to their beliefs. In Hermeatics, the tree of life has a mirror side called the tree of Da'ath, is where the popular opposing or opposite is viewed from the nine choirs of heaven and hell, where there are nine realms from the throne of God to our dimension, and likewise from our dimension to the throne of Satan. Satan is the Hebrew ha Satan, meaning adversary, in the Jewish or Hebrew and Islamic. We see El Shaitan, meaning accuser. So right there, you're seeing the tempter, but we're also seeing the accuser by the JCI standards, the Middle Eastern. Now, like God, whose human factions, namely the Catholics, have pope, cardinals, bishops, priests, then so too does Satan. Satan's priesthoods is derived from the satanic views of black pope, magistrate to black priests. But I have recently came across the dark bishops within the Asian traditions, which I'll get into a little later on. So, Hope you have your teas because here's where it's going to start getting interesting. And by the way, peppermint tea, incredible. So, priesthoods. Now, as I've stated, there are different degrees and ranks of priests within the Satanic and JCI traditions of practice. So, first off, when I began my studies into how to become a bishop, the only sources were Catholic and mainstream JCI. That is when I came across what is known as the Canon laws. What are the Canon laws and how do they pertain to the priesthood? Well, here it is. The Canon law reveals what a minister needs to have to qualify for the position of bishop, which are as following: hospitality, self-control, kindness, generality, avoidance of drunkenness, displays of anger, and that of arrogance. These are found in the Canon Law 377.1 and 2, and that of 178.1, and finally 431.0. Basically, it's that entire chapter kind of describes a little bit of it. It's just like a couple of paragraphs in that one. The priests. Priest comes from the Latin via Greek etymology, presbyter, whereas the Greek is presbyteros. Now, those two words are spelled Priesbyter and Prsbuteros. Okay. Ironically, the Latin sacerdos or Hieros, which is spelled Secerdos and Hiereus, okay, is derived from other sources such as Old Icelandic, the Prestr, Prestr, Old Swedish, Praster, Praster, Old High German, Prast, Praist, basically meaning between God and man. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to get into older traditions and examples of old world. And I'm talking extremely old world, like ancient Greek, Egyptian, and such, first, second, and third dynasties, and Middle Eastern stuff. Priest and priestesses. Many European traditions, such as Wicca, have the warlock and witch etymologies that define male and female. But within the Swedish traditions, we see the hexa, which shows most to be women, but some of the remaining documents of the era are of the burning times shows that some males are practitioners. In Vudan, we see the mambo or caplata. This is the female priests or priestesses, the priestesses there. Compared to the Hungan or Bokor, which is male, down to the Brujeria, Santeria, and Palo traditions. This is meaning Palo Mayan, oh my God, I can't speak right now. Palo Monte and Palo Mayambi. Okay. Where we see the female Brua and the Bruo male practitioners. Even in Satanism, we see the priest and priestess. But where does these derive from? Well, let's take a look. Priestess was coined in the 17th century in the English known to describe ordained females in the Anglican Communion. Naditu, that's Naditu, is the designation of a legal position. A legal position for women in Babylonian society as well as the Sumerian slaves. Examples. There are two known examples here that we can take from this. One is Pythia, and the other is Delphi. These are but two names of sacred divination, better known today as oracles in the ancient historical records. In Vedic, we see the priesthood. Druidic and Gaelic, we see the priesthood. Examples there, and further examples, we see males perform sacred sacrifices to the gods, known as high rituals, high magic today. And the priesthood also acted on behalf of the deitas to maintain their properties. Now, what do I always tell you guys? Whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources, right? And remember to make yourself available to the public, because you don't just answer to the public, but you also answer to the beings that you work with, meaning demons, the Devi, the gods, okay, the jinn. You answer to them like you do the people, because you are that representation. You're that elder, okay? So, further examples here, we see Akkadian, the Intu, ENTU, 23rd century BCE. Sumerian, we see the N, EN. Naditu, W, where the priestesses to Inanna, Ananna, within the city of Uruk. That's Uruk. Sumerian, we see Nin, known as the sign of the lady. Akkadian, we see Ares, Eres. Nin means dinger, Dingir. And two means divine lady. Okay? You can actually go into the epic tale or text, the Enmerker of the Lord and of Aratta. That's Aratta. Enmerker is Enmerker. Okay, that's the Enmerker and the Lord of Aratta. Egyptian, the Shem priesthood. Now, I spent a lot of time delving into Egyptian necromancy, and the Shem priesthood became a fascinating topic for me. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be delving into that. This is literally the first, second, and third dynasty of Egypt. And you can actually see where in the Old Testament of the Bible is where this came from, because this particular one is known as the Aaronites, the priesthood of Aaron in the book of Exodus and Leviticus. Let's see here. The Egyptian Shem priesthood. Priests or high priests of Ammon. Late period. We see cults like that of Artemis and Anubis, to name a couple. But if we look into Israel, we see the Aaronite priesthood founded by Moses' brother Aaron. The Aaronic priests in the law of Moses within the patrilineal descent of Aaron. Hebrew, we see Kohen, meaning Kohanim, Kohanim. It's got a lot of different spellings, so you really have to pay attention to it, because in different regions and territories, it was pronounced by different standards, different terminology-wise, pronunciation. Jerusalem, we see within the Talmud, the Mishnaic tractate Measure Shiani of the tribe of Levi, the Levites, page 31a. And the Mishnaic is Mishhnaic, tractate, Tractate, Measure, Maaser, Shiani, Sheini. Okay, so I'm kind of spelling it out for you so you can actually delve into that. You can do Google searches, you can go into historical references of those eras and that region of the Middle East. Kohen or Kohan, Kaha between the C and the K. Kohen. So basically, you have Kohaen or Kohan. Then you have Kaha with a C. That's Caha, and then you got the same spelling but with a K. Okay. Kohen, Kogn, Kogan, etc. Are the root words derived from the Kwa or con, meaning to stand or to be ready. Okay. We can also go into other languages to view different meanings and etymologies of the term priest and priesthood. In Semitic languages, we show further the Phoenician KHN meaning priest, Arabic kahin, KAHIN meaning priest, Anglican or Episcopalian, Lutheranianism, Methodism, Latter day Saints, Mandeism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Taoism, the Yoruba people of Africa, which were said to have been the first people of Africa, and basically they were they were the creators of voodoo, okay, African-based voodoo, long before Santeria and the Caribbean traditions took over, throughout the Congo region. Satanism, Paya di Santo, Quimbanda, Kendobi, Neo-paganism, Wicca, Santeria, all of these have historical value within the traditions of priesthood or elders of a tradition. Examples, the Shem priesthood of Egypt. The high priests were known as Hen Netjar. High priestesses were known as the Hen Netjar Tepi. Our priests, as in the time, as in a clock, okay, hour, were the middle class priests who were astronomers and kept the calendar up to date. The Wab priests were the bottom of the priesthood who performed the essential but mundane tasks. The SWNW, known as doctors, were considered general practitioners. The Ka priests or Ka servants were paid by families to give offerings at the tombs of loved ones. The Shem priests presided over the mortuary and magical practice of the Egyptian Book of the Dead within the areas of embalmers, mummifiers, and reciting incantations. The lector priests, aka Herieb, that's Herey -eb, or Sheriheb, Cheriheb, were the priests that wrote down the religious texts and instituted other clergy. They recited the authoritative utterances known as Heka, meaning magic or goddess. We can find references here within the negative confessions of the list of sins, which was 1570 to 1069 BCE within the New Kingdom of Egypt. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, Osiris in the Afterlife. Lightning and fire, rituals involving drawing the bold, Apophis. C period 1570 to 1544 BCE. So you can actually see how in depth I get with my studies and my practices here, because it takes you far way back, away from all the corruption and the watered down practices that we see today. The priesthood was exempt from taxes, which allowed the land to flourish until the end of the Old Kingdom. We see the same thing today with more modern day JCI churches. They get a tax break. They're basically exempt from taxes because of that. Henceforth, why they have like 10 grand sitting in their bank accounts at any given time. Kingdom. This was due to the king viewing the priest's offerings as off limits. The New Kingdom allowed more selfish profit, 1353 to 1336 BCE, where it's evident the root of the collapse resulting in a dead, barren sand wasteland, as we now know it, caused politics, and mercy was the cause of the downfall, which became known as the Reform. Middle Kingdom was C period 2040 to 1782 BCE. This was Thebes at Karnak. Intermediate period, which was C 1069 to 525 BCE, the god's wife, Amen, ruled Upper Egypt. Tutankhamun, C 1336 to 1327 BCE, the reform of his father's religion abolished his father's religion completely before and returning to the old ways. Now, this word I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because of the way it's spelled. I'm just going to spell it out for you. Quindecimviri was a class of priests whose sole responsibility was to guard the sacred books called Sibylline. Sibylline book. The Sibylline book, which contained the prophecies and down to the empire's fate. They also were responsible for the amalgamating foreign gods into Roman ones, or at best adapting them. This was C period 365 to 406 CE. Pontiffs were overseen by the Pontifex Maximus and in times of need acted as the Pope. These groups' responsibilities included public rites and ceremonies. Daily occasions were there were 4 colleagues of priests that were pontiffs that oversaw, but it was their sworn duty to oversee public rites as the general overseers if needed, and they could appoint priests to other priesthoods when the times called for it. Think of the modern day Catholic aspects between the subdivisions of exorcists compared to bishops that run churches, compared to those that run and oversee the what do they call those? The monasteries and stuff like that. Okay, different aspects of the group of the Roman Orthodox and the Orthodox Roman Catholic Church. Augurs were priests whose duties included divination by means of bird watching. This was based off the types of bird species which allowed them to interpret the will of the gods. Flamines were a class of priests whose duties included caring for the temples in the gods such as Jupiter. Israel priesthoods are descendants of Aaron and the eldest brother of Moses. It's said that Aaron served in the tabernacle of Solomon's temple and second temple, according to the Hebrew Bible, around 70 CE until the destruction of Jerusalem. These priests were known as Kohanim, Kohanim, okay, which is Hebrew for Kohen, families of rabbinical Judaism. The first priest to be officially mentioned is Melchizedek, who was the high priest's servant, or the highest servant. The priesthood is mentioned in both the book of Exodus, chapter 40, verse 15, and that of the King James Version, chapter 16, 11, or 16, yeah, 16, 11 of Leviticus 21, verse 10, where they serve in unique functions such as the burnt offerings, sin offerings, etc., down to the meal offerings and animal sacrifices of goats and heifers. Now, the examples here are priestly blessings. A red heifer is sacrificed. Redemption of firstborn. Sin offerings, incense offerings. The Israel priesthoods' robes included turbans, tunic, linen undergarments, the sash, the ephod or urim or amen, priesthood breastplates with 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay. References: thesis of Julius Wallhauser. Hopefully I pronounced his name right, because that's going to be awkward. Um, Frank Moore Cross, Canaanite Myth in Hebrew Epic, 1998, Chapter 8. Gary A. Anderson, Priesthood and Cult of Ancient Israel, 1991. William R. Priesthood in Ancient Israel, 2001. Druidic priesthoods can be broken down into three classes known as castes or Druidic orders. The AOD is a Neo-Druid order, is the oldest, or the eldest, I should say, in the world, going back to 781. Founded in England, just off Oxford Street. And I'm pretty sure I messed that one up because it was supposed to be 1781. Not the line with the dot underneath it, the emoji thing. And a little tavern. This group is similar to that of the Freemasons and yet are distinctly different. By the 1920s, the story changed and was made up to artisans and merchants. This era became a formal group. There are numerous dates of correspondences which changes, ranging from 1920s, 1831, 1791, 1783, 1794, and 1730. The names change as well, ranging from the Shepherd Society of 1826 to the Foresters Family Society, 1834. The Old Fellows, the Old Fellows, 1730. These groups had around 193 lodges and over 200,000 members by the years of 1831. Yet by 1833, the lodge split to form the United Ancient Orders of Druids. This became known as the Great Succession. The AOD and the UAOD and OD, which were basically the same foundations, just different names. It's documented after World War I that relations were abated due to what is considered the oldest function joining Congress, which was organized in Great Britain. After World War II, it was documented much of their archives were destroyed during what is called the Blitz. These groups are said to be based off of the Iron Age paganism in today's perspectives of research and influenced by neo-paganism. Think Gerald Gardner, if you will, or Aleister Crowley. Okay, two of the oldest known neo-pagans that there were. And yet, Aleister Crowley is known as the Beast, 666, and the wickedest man alive. And Gerald Buckland wrote numerous books, okay, and became the godfather, basically, of neo-paganism. So, instead, it's expected its members' practices and principles to be preserved within the early Druid practices, which were justice, benevolence, and friendship. This sets them apart from the common belief of the lodges. Okay. References here, we see Peter Clarke, British Clubs and Societies, 1580 to 1680. Henry Cox, The Ancient Druids, Coventry, 1929. The AOD, Ancient Order of Druids, Introductory Book, 1840, by T. Bertelli. Now, my favorite order that I've ever had the honor of studying outside of the Shin priesthood, this is where we're getting into that. The Hashishin, One of the most forgotten priesthoods is the Hashishin, which was founded in 1080 AD until their destruction of 1275 AD by the Mongols. This group was known as assassins, credited with over 300 confirmed kills, who were highly trained in combat and yet were holy monks. This group was known as Nazari Ismail Melis, which is the Arabic name for the Order of Assassins. As previously stated in my essay, Feared Art of Necromancy, the crossover, I discussed the fortresses, locale, and the founder, etc., of their historical value within the Middle East. Now, what's interesting about this group is they've actually, since then, I've traced them back to the 6th century. The earliest foundation was around the 6th century BC, which was kind of cool, actually. No, not BC, but AD, 6th century AD. And it was actually kind of cool to see that and how they started out as a small band and then had fortresses and everything, like castles, if you will, spread across the entire region of the Middle East. Very, very fascinating. And then you have the Knights of Templar. The Knights of Templar were well known throughout both religious and physical accounts today. What's interesting here is the fact each Templar knight was a monk and holy man whose oath was to the church. By church, I mean the Vatican. They were a military force of highly trained soldiers and yet waged war in the Middle East, aka the Holy Land, while being known in Europe as the protectors of the roads. The Templars were vastly wealthy, and perhaps that's why the church disbanded them and they became outlaws through pagan worship of devils. I believe that that was a corruption upon devil worship due to the fact that both historically and folkloric accounts within archaeology clearly shows them as men of God, meaning Jehovah, Allah, etc., and not of the adversary. Hollywood produced films actually documented them as having being framed and set up by the church and the King of England through idol worship. Think Baphomet, if you will. The cult of Artemis. The cult of Artemis, whose priests I did discuss in my last essay, showed the priesthood as a cult that sacrificed young women, virgin sacrifices, through the rite known as Artia, which takes place in 3 stages. By sacrifice, I mean ritually promoting the coming of age of young women from puberty to bearing their first child through 3 stages, which I did discuss in the Feared Art of Necromancy, the crossover, so I won't get repeated here. A great source for one to seek out is the Archtemnis lines, which goes back to the 5th century. Think of this rite as being similar to that of the Hebrew bar mitzvah, within the coming of age. Santeria. Santeria priests and priestesses are known as Brua female and Bruo male practitioners within the African Caribbean traditions. They are the ones you find owning botanicas and aiding in both healing and spiritual aspects of the job um, subscriptions. More so, there are many stories within Central and North America upon why they are feared and respected through their worship of the Orisha saints. They use divinations such as shells, eggs, and many other Trabajo, um, just like in Brujeria practices. Palo Mayambi and Monte. Here, the role of each Bruo or Brua is within their own annotation into the religion. They became a Palero, which over time can be promoted, so to speak, to Tata. These practitioners can run their own house and teach their own members within their own traditions of practices, basically being a high priest or priestess of that house. Um, and keep in mind that Palo Mayambi and Brujeria are different practices, same with Santeria. Santeria and the Orishas would not do anything baneful or vile. Whereas in Palo Mayombe and Brujeria, you do whatever you're paid to do or whatever is necessary. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Within theistic Satanism, atheistic and traditional Satanism, there is a priesthood that is within the hierarchy of each temple or church. They range from priest up to the Black Pope or high priest or priestess of that chapter and denomination. Each Satanist is, in an aspect, a priest or priestess of Satan, even if they are ordained either within the denomination or chapter of Satanism or going outside by, say, the Universal Life Monastery or that of the American Fellowship, which is a government recognized clergy priesthood. And then you go into Indonesia, the Dukan, Dukun. These are shamans who practice Santet, black magic, and other various types within the Javanese religion of Indonesia. Their roles differ from religion to religion, such as some perform duties of both shaman and village chief. They mostly heal, but when paid, can cause harm through Santet practices. Santet is one of 6 types of practices to which they perform. Jeng Gers, Jenggers, Naraga, Naruga, Santet, Santet, Serep, Sirep, Tenung, Tenung, Suzak, Susuk. Each of these practices are performed differently due to the intent of the outcome of the Dukan performing the rituals. But for the most part, the Dukan are feared and respected even through residing in a purely Islamic state. Santet is the art of baneful magic, better known as black magic today, through 2 types of practices known as Java and Tila. Java, I'm not going to spell that because I'm pretty sure if you don't know how to spell Java, then you shouldn't be around. But Tila is Teluh. Java is black magic, whereas Tula means witchcraft. Santet is the act where a person attempts to harm another person through or from a distance by the means of baneful or wrathful magics. They would use items such known as effigies or a direct source of energy currents, such as nail clippings, hair, locks of hair, photographs, dolls, incense, and or flowers, which could normally result in disability and or death of the target or the victim being afflicted by said magics. It is said that 2 elements are needed to afflict such damaging blows to an enemy or target, which are air and earth. The energy base of negative force, cause, and effect is summoned to affect someone's health. Now, earth and air can be opposing forces if performed incorrectly. Agrippa theorized that earth and water were naturally dense and that by adding in air or fire, one could increase or decrease the volume of mass of the elemental structure. So, by adding air to earth, you are in fact increasing the integrity of the elemental structure to perform an act of santet to disable or to kill the an enemy from afar. This is done with nails, pens, scorpions, etc., in one of 2 ways of study and practice. The first, clergy known as Dalil, Dalil, use scripture to chant and or pray for divine aid, either through cursing and or healing with spirits. This is done through the Kitabiyah photograph within Islamic traditions. That's Kitabiyah. Okay. And the second is scientists use um, Kanaya tradition which is Kauniyah tradition of modern physics, of the knowledge of the universe, to implore such magics within the understanding of energy currents in either positive or negative perspectives. Demit Demit is a term for spirits who aid in the negative charged energies, such as evil genies, aka in the genie, depending if you're going from Africa all the way up into Middle Eastern. Santet is the Javanese black magic where they would use the jinn, devi, demons, etc., to aid in their spells. Therefore, the medieval community, which is made up of scientific studies, would not be able to identify a magical tool such as a voodoo doll or a grisgris bag being implemented in a curse or hex type ritual. Their technology is limited, which is why the Dukan is a necessary evil. This is due to a magical tool in spirits cannot be witnessed through terminology, and therefore a doctor cannot treat the symptoms of someone being cursed. Normally, the victim would suffer from many months before falling victim to illness and or death. The Dukan Santet is a dark shaman, and much the same meaning as that of India's dark hag shamans who get paid to perform rites of healing and or destruction rites. In this case, Santet means hurting without touch. A Dukan performs many rites such as healing curses, gempai, incantations, mantra, chanting, herbalism, and spiritual mediumships, etc. There are two main traditions in Javanese, which are Kibet Tenen and Kijawa. This is Kebatinan and Kejawa. Okay, this is where the Dukan is at the epitome of both. The beliefs of the Dukan range from ancestor worship, animism, shamanism, and which is highly common amongst the how should I say this the Nusantana Nusantana peoples of the islands of Java, Madura, Balinese, and Sundra. Okay, and that word that I just tried sounding out is Nusantana. Okay, you can actually Google that yourself. The Dayak people of Kilimantan are feared due to head hunting practices used by the Dukan of the region. The Saba and the Kadayan Dukan are said to have Waif, that's Waif, like red eyes, which terrify the locals and visitors, which aid in their myths and legends. Tok Batin and Proto Mali, for an example, have dual roles, such as being a shaman on one hand and the village chief on the other. Their knowledge is passed down orally, much like the Gaelic Druids, can be through word of mouth, especially if one is going to become an initiate and apprentice of a Dukan. Their practices within apprenticeships involve meditation in a cemetery, in the mountains, at a waterfall, or some other location where humanity is not. Think of the practitioners of India, for an example, who take this literally to the extremes and isolate themselves from society. Look at the monks in the of Zen, for an example, who isolate themselves into temples or monasteries way out in the mountains. Amazing. To learn in this way is to remove oneself from the populace. Their titles are as follows: medicinal and curative, exorcism, divination and soothsaying, charms and blessings, spiritual communication, sorcery and practices. These sorcery practices are divided into 7 aspects, which are as follows. And I'm going to break this down for you because it's very, very interesting how they did this. The Jagnis is the practice of offerings of both incense and opiums, which are arrayed in a half circle, which includes nails, glass, and needles, while asking or petitioning the aid of a spirit to place said items into the stomach of the target and or victim. That word is Jengges. Narunga, Narunga. Narunga is the practice of placing an emotional suggestion into the desired target or victim where they go out and kill someone else. This is done through baneful, malevolent, and sometimes love spells. Santet. Santet is the practice of hurting someone from afar with an baneful and wrathful sorcery of cursing, extreme pain, and the death of the target, him or her herself. Serep. The practice is done by causing the target to succumb to a deep and unshakable slumber. Tenung. Tenung is the practice of creation of halls or half circles of food offerings, which includes opiates and incense while chanting for the destruction of the victim. Here we see the side effects being vomiting, headaches, and illness. Okay, even the Catholics in JCI actually consider this part of being demonically possessed, possession. Okay, which can also be associated with mental illness as well. So, hence why most Catholic priests today are associated with psychiatry. Suzak. Suzak is the practice similar to a voodoo doll in Haitian practices of the Bokor and Capilata. Here we see the metal needle being impaired into the body of a target without leaving any signs of a wound. This is a more primitive version of skin tightening, which can be used to make someone attractive and or more vulnerable. In 1998, the Java Ninja Scare. This is basically an entire year. This entire year was a modern witch hunt, which resulted in 150 to 300 deaths of Dukan due to the belief of self-made curses and negativity within the population of the time. Think of the late 80s and you know, and the early 90s, where every crime was thought to be committed by a Satanist, or the witch trials of 1604 to 1760, where hundreds of accused witches were put to death. The only thing that separates the above from the ninja scare was the fact that those accused were put to death after being convicted by legal means and or out of vengeance by the community itself. Even today, it is considered hard to build a case against a new Khan for practicing Santet because, as the word states quite clearly, hurting without touch means no evidence to buck up the claims or to back up the claims. Um, most the legal system can do is prosecute a suspected Dukan of fraud, much like in England, of today, through the European legal system, um, and or some other crime such as rape, which is documented over the last 2 decades. Clergy and of the Islamic traditions that and that of the scientists cannot prove baneful magic as causes of death due to the fact that scientists tend to rely more on proof, such as astronomy and or physics, which does not apply or sit well with those of religious parties such as Islam, Judeo Christian institutions, down to Judaism. This is due to the JCI, Judeo Christian institutions, believing more in their scriptures than being able to prove their claims of a devil. No one agrees, which is why in European countries it is easier to convict on fraud cases than anything else. Even in the United States of America, we see two aspects. First, we see where the rights of religious protections play into effect, and secondly, the legal system plays onto or into an account on fraud, which has to be proven. Even with slander case, both the European and the United States legal systems have to be proven. Most of the time, churches tend to warn the masses not to have anything to do with sorcery, for it is of the devil. Yet people still go to shamans, necromancers, witches, warlocks, and diviners, etc., for answers no one else can give. I myself have even had Christians come to me for spell casting and or readings down to curses even. Look at Brujeria, Santeria, Palo, and other African Caribbean traditions, which are those in modern Mexico where witch markets exist, backroom rituals performed for the masses who pay for the services of a brua or brua. No matter where in the world you go, commerce plays its part into going as far back to the Paleolithic era, where shamans, witches, the Bokor down to warlocks are consulted, and either money is given or we see fish or furs being given in exchange for the service in question. So, Deccan of Indonesia and surrounding regions is no different than the Catholic monks of the 17th and 18th centuries pimping themselves out for money, performing black mass or blessings, etc., to the populace worldwide. So you can see why my fourth and fifth essay came together as one essay. There was just so much that went into it, and that research is still being performed today. So it's not just, hey, brother, Black Tower, welcome. So it doesn't matter what religion you're in, it helps you to get out of that religion so you can focus more on your studies and your education so that you're not ignorant, so you're not blind like Christians are today. And not just the Christians, but the populace. Because of the fact that if you look at it, Christians would rather be arrogant enough to sit there and go, well, it's your issue, you deal with it. Put it on the altar, leave it at the fucking altar. Okay? But yet, it's like their shit don't stink because they'll sit there and accuse you of being a devil worshiper. They'll accuse you of being a demon, evil, vile. They'll sit there and call you an archdemon, an antichrist. Hell, I've been called all those things. Okay? But here it is. In today's society, Christians will tell you that a woman cannot be a minister. Bullshit. What did I just read to you in my essay? Going from Africa up into the Middle East, down into Asia and Indonesia cultures. What did I just read to you from the African Caribbean traditions? How about European traditions of the Hexa, the Strega, the Strigoi, the Eshi, the Aji, the shaman, the necromancer? Bullshit. You can be a minister. You can be a priestess. Those who tell you otherwise don't know their fucking history. Okay? So the way I look at it is this. Do your own research. Be that one fish that goes against the current. You will be better off for it. Hands down. Now, like I said, my essay isn't the only ones in these books. Other practitioners have put their own experiences, their own practices and stuff like that into those books. Okay. So I do recommend the Sabbatica series to you, and there's a lot of those books. I think there's like 20 books, I think, by now, if not 30. I don't, honestly, I don't know how many books there are that Edgar Cavall has put out with that name. But like I said, you got a lot of practitioners from well-known ones like Bill Duvendak, Asenath Mason, Edgar Cavall himself. You got S. Connolly Reeser. You got Sonorius there, who put her essays in there. She's got a good following on YouTube. But when it comes down to it, you've also got the thing I like about Ed Cavall's work is he even puts people that's not really well known into his books so that you can learn from them as well. So I recommend the Sabbatica series to you. I've only got 4 books here of that series, and I do look forward to getting the others. And I've got 2 other essays that I'm still currently working on. So who knows what the future holds there. But I wanted you to hear about the priesthood for a reason. There's a lot of heated discussions on this. There's a lot of that going out there. And you got a lot of fight between politics and religions going to each other's throats. And the only ones that you see waging war is the JCI. Islamic, Hebrew, Jewish, mainstream Catholics, Orthodox religions of the Christian variety. They're the only ones that you see going out there and making a big fucking fuss. And now you've got Satanism doing the same damn thing. So my point here is learn from history, or you'll be doomed to repeat it. Okay? Plain and simple. All right? I want to thank Leo Blanford for jumping on here with me, and my brother, the Black Tower. Always good to see you, brother. Glad you made it to this little reading of mine. And I hope you go out and get those books. And kind of learn from all these other practitioners, because there's a lot of practitioners throughout these books. Like I said, Sean I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I like his music. One of these books, I think it was the 3rd book here. I think it was this one here. Yes, it was. It was this book here, Sabbatica, Grave Songs and Herbal Gnosis. Actually came with a DVD, not a DVD, but a CD of mantra. I really liked that effect, and it was actually pretty good meditation music too. So keep that in mind. So whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources, and always make yourself available to the public. All right? Until next time, have a good one. And for those of you coming on, you like what I do, you like what you hear, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to hit that notification button. And, just keep it up, all right? Keep learning, keep reaching for that the sky or the hells, whichever way you want to go. And remember that the term gnosis means hidden, okay? You have to seek it out, not the other way around. And history has proven that power comes in 2 ways. It's either given to you by a spirit, which means it can be taken away, or 2, that which you earn and then is given to you after you move on to the next realm, the next life, the next chapter of your existence. Okay, and that's called apotheosis. So with that said, have a good one, and until next time, I'm out.